in this episode of the Living God's Light podcast.
The great lie is that somehow science only deals with physical things. That is such a lie. It's such a lie. Science is actually a method of viewing the universe, viewing the things around us. Everything has a science to it. And when we use these methods and start to look with scientific eyes, at even spiritual things, we'll start to see things that we were meant to see all along.
I am
living God's light.
Yeah, that's what fascinated me, was this idea of, because you've got the Masters in Physics and the Masters in Divinity. There's on our Discord group for Living God's Light, the chat communication channel that we're slowly adding people to, somebody who's really big into personality types. We were talking about personality types, and I mentioned mine using the Myers-Briggs INTP, and she said, every INTP I've ever met is hardcore atheist. I would love to hear about your spiritual journey. And I'm like, well, I'm very analytical, very science-based in so many things, but yet I'm also aware how real spirit stuff is. And just that blending, and to find kind of a kindred spirit on, yep, I got science. And so
yeah, I was excited when I heard that. Like, you've written a book on spirituality, but you have an engineering background. I was like, oh, this is this is one of my people.
Yeah, with my so degree in aerospace engineering, and my wife. So in college, my wife was also in the aerospace engineering program, working on becoming an astronaut. And then we got married, and she became a mom and dropped off. But then when our oldest went to college, she wanted to go back, so she ended up getting a degree in physics with a minor in neuroscience.
Oh.
So our dinner table conversations are lots of fun.
So exciting, because the bridges are everywhere. Sometimes we just don't. Our eyes aren't even open to it. We're not recognizing where there's connections already.
Yeah. Well, and so many times, because I mean, with science, and Liz is just here watching us geek out on science stuff. The fascinating thing to me is the scientific method. It comes down to learning through observation, and what can we measure? And there's so many things spiritually that you can't measure scientifically, but that doesn't mean it's not real. We talked about on previous episode that we just recorded, we talk about materialism and things like that, and how, but even from the beginning, there have been things that we couldn't measure at the time that still existed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And so what's your thoughts on those?
Well, reality is so much more rich than we realize. Like, we think, I talked about Gas on Fire, listening to Dr. Michael Guillen. If you haven't heard of the book, it's called Believing is Seeing, and it just was like gas on fire for me. He's a PhD, raised in a Latino charismatic denomination, which already I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Hit like a third generation pastors before him, and then decides that he doesn't want to follow in the tradition and becomes an atheist because he loves science so much. He ends up getting a 3-discipline PhD at Harvard, I believe it was, in astronomy. He had to get permission to do it: astronomy, physics, and math. And then becomes a professor at Cornell with Carl Sagan, like one of his colleagues. And then he writes a book, Believing is Seeing. And I forgot where I was going with it. It's real, but reality. He says the greatest power in the universe is faith, and this is a scientist who came back to Christ through his journey. And I'm just seeing that reality is so much richer. Just when we begin to see that it's not. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The great lie. The great lie. He says the great lie is that somehow science only deals with physical things. That is such a lie. It's such a lie. Science is actually a method of viewing the universe, viewing the things around us. Everything has a science to it. And when we use these methods and start to look with scientific eyes, at even spiritual things, we'll start to see things that we were meant to see all along. Like, the great lie has caused so much damage in our world. And I think there would be so much less atheism if we didn't believe that science only deals with this physical reality. In fact, on my website, one of the first quotes on the website is from Nikola Tesla, one of my heroes. And we, of course, the whole car company named after him. He was a devout follower of Jesus, and he said, the moment, I might get the quote not exactly right, but the moment that science turns its attention to non-physical realities, they will discover more in a decade than the previous centuries of its existence.
Ooh, chills.
Yeah, like, are you serious? Like Nikola Tesla, like he was prophetic, a scientific prophet. Like, and I really think this is true. I think the great lie of dividing spiritual things from physical things as if they don't go together. Like, we know, look at psychology, psychosomatic things. We know that anxiety affects the body. I just heard that like cells carry memory. Like, all of these things are being discovered, and that we're realizing, and quantum mechanics is just throwing the whole thing for a loop. Like, physicists who thought that spiritual and physical things were divided, quantum mechanics is like throwing, like, nope, you're totally wrong. Like, your perspective as you look at things actually is helping determine what happens in some way. Like, you personally are interacting. I think there are discoveries waiting to be had, and I think Tesla is right. I think when we as scientists realize that that this reality we live in is way more intricate, people are healed through forgiveness, physically healed. I hear it all the time. Someone forgives someone that they've been holding a grudge against. That sounds like a very spiritual thing, right? No, actually, immediately their bodies get healed. And sometimes not. Sometimes it's a process, but this is not a joke. This is reality. This is how it works. Go ahead. Sorry.
Vinny, you've been doing a lot of work lately with extreme the emotions spirit to the body.
I don't want to claim that I do any of this. This is all just spirit, working through me. But I've watched people become cured of cancers. I've watched on their own journey, they cure themselves. And I've watched people, get rid of tumors. I've seen people get rid of lifelong pains they've had since they were children by going in and finding the emotion.
You store the emotion in your body. It actually comes out. It's so true. Yeah. Flow is a thing we talk about a lot in like businesses, say getting in your creative flow. I bet Vinny, I haven't got to watch. I love what you teach, but I bet a lot of your trainings talk about getting in a flow with God and what he's doing, what he's saying. Like, just flow is a beautiful thing to talk about in physics, because there's this really amazing truth about flow in physics. And this is one of the first things that kind of launched me into thinking about reality reconciliation. Physics. So now you don't get to talk, Lynn, because you would know this, having a physics training. So the other two, and maybe you get. So when there's flow in a pipe, do you think that pressure would increase or decrease when flow increases, when there's higher flow? Faster moving fluid. Is faster moving fluid going to increase pressure or decrease pressure?
I would think increase.
It feels like it would increase, doesn't it?
I would think it would, with the pressure, I would think it would decrease.
Yeah. Intuitively, I would have said increase, but physics says it decreases.
Wow.
That actually, when you increase the flow in a pipeline, it decreases pressure. Well, that actually pops in so many ways. Like, I think physics is meant to pop in our minds and hearts, like to release something. Science is meant to release something in our hearts as well as our minds. And when I heard that, like the word pressure, or the science of pressure, actually directly relates to pressure and stress. In fact, they use the words interchangeably in science. Pressure and stress are both force over area. So a force is something pushing on you, and an area is how much space are you pushing on, right? So if you want to decrease stress, then increase the area over which the force is being applied. How do you do that? You share your stress with other people. Oh, go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to say flow, increase the flow.
Or increase flow, So pressure decreases when flow increases. So what does that mean? Well, get in the flow. What is God saying? What is he doing? don't depend on your own understanding. And I'm not saying don't use it, just don't depend on it. Trust rather in God, in his flow or her flow. Now, I think
Can I
that,
not to interrupt, I just want to jump in. So, because you
Yeah.
mentioned flow, and then I kept my mouth shut because I knew the answer. But
I knew you did, but
well, so the two things that come to mind on that
yeah,
examples is, so if you look at the cross section of an airplane's wing,
yep,
it's more curved on the top than on the bottom because now it's got a greater path to travel, more flow decreases the pressure, and that's what lifts the airplane in the air. And so, same thing, if you want to elevate yourself, increase the flow above. And also, when you're in traffic, the way that they do the math on traffic flow is they use the exact same formulas as flow of fluids through pipes. So when you're driving down the road, think of this as your car is just one individual water particle flowing through that pipe. And if you're thinking about driving, the better that flow is going, the less pressure you have.
So my question then, because I'm a visual, like Lynn, the way you just described it, like that was very visual to me. And so now I'm thinking like, okay, most of my life I've probably been on the city streets. Okay. I've been hitting all the lights. I've been resisting, feeling the pressure. How do I get on the freeway and get into the flow? Right.
it's a great it's a great question. It actually, I think it's the crux of it all. All healing and all recovery is truly a matter of letting go. It's actually a matter of letting go. We don't. This is a. I wasn't planning on sharing this. We don't. I'm about to cry. Oh, one of the ways that God moves, really, no, about one of the ways God moves in me. We have to know how we tick, how God moves in us, right? Like we have to get tuned into that. And when I start to feel something, it often comes out my eyes.
I want to hear it then. This is important then.
It's really important. Um, all growth is a matter of surrender. All growth is a matter of letting go of control. Actually, truly, all growth is a matter of letting go. Forgiveness. We just talked about forgiveness, healing. Vinny said all these testimonies. All of it is surrender. I'm not going to hold them onto my hook. I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go. All growth is a matter of surrender. But here's the rub. You never surrender if you don't trust. To the level that you trust, to that level you surrender. And so, if I'm not able to surrender and let go of control, be it my kids and their behavior and I want them to change, be it my job and trying to increase my finances and get up the ladder of success. And none of that is bad. Wanting my kids to grow, wanting to get up the ladder, all those things, writing my book, all those things. But if I'm trying to control it, somewhere I don't trust. Somewhere I don't trust. And so the goal then is, this is why Michael Guillen said in his book, Believing is Seeing, the most powerful force in the universe is faith. PhD physicist, and is saying faith is why. Faith, another word for it, pisteuo in the Greek, is trust. It's trust. And like a dad, we have a heavenly dad or heavenly mom, however you want to think about God. And the more we can trust, the more we'll be able to surrender. And then so now we've gone back a couple steps, right? All growth is a matter of surrender. Surrender is a matter of trust. So then the question goes back, how do you trust more? Right?
That was my next question is, yeah, okay, so for somebody who has felt like they've tried that trust path and they keep getting burned, so then what do you do with then?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I there's so many ways to answer this, but most okay. God, if God is who God says she is, okay? And I like to say she because I think we religify, is that a word? We like to make, God is God has no sex. So anyways, if God is who God says God is, then he's the most trustworthy being in the universe. There's nothing there's no reason I should doubt and trust at all. There's no reason. Like this being was willing to give up absolutely everything for me. Very
Ryan,
son.
I'm curious if you know of Vinny's story. I don't know if you know that background at all. Like if you
I
know that.
don't. I haven't heard it.
So, okay, Vinny, you got to share with Ryan
Well,
a
I
little bit
gotta
of,
I
yeah.
gotta pop in here anyway. You know, the big thing for me is in life we think that allowing ourselves to flow and trusting God or the universe, that we're doing it attached to outcome, and you can't.
Yeah.
Flow is a state of mind, not an expectation. And expectation is a thief of happiness, of joy, even of learning. And it's important that when we're in that state of flow, that we keep that energy of acceptance.
Yeah.
That all things lead to a better place, and even a step down leads you to a bigger step up. You know, doors closed turn you around to bigger doors open. There's a lot there with that. But my story is I was found dead in a Dairy Queen, and they put me in a body bag. And when they were taking my body to the medical examiner, a rookie medic felt something in him to break protocols and attempt resuscitation beyond what the other medics had already done. And he was able to get the heart to start. At the moment he did that, it was just a few feet from a hospital. They got my body turned into the hospital, and they started working on me there for 3 days.
Wow.
And so for 3 days, I got to be in the flow, the real flow, the true flow, what we would call energy or spirit. To me, it's the same, one and the same. We are energy, and I got to be in that energetic state for 3 days.
Wow.
And then I didn't cut the mustard. They sent me back, and
Well, you gotta describe what that energetic state was. So he had a guide, and he got an extensive tour of the other side, got taught 10 principles, and he got sent back.
then I got sent back. Yeah.
And
So ever since then, I've been a PR campaign for remembering who we really are. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and
That's
that's
wild.
yeah, Ryan, I forget sometimes. Yeah, you're coming into this fresh, so there's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
showing up.
I haven't read the book yet. Yeah. Oh,
Okay, yeah,
wow.
so that describes his experience in the 10 principles,
Wow.
and that's what started this whole Living God's Light movement.
Yeah. Wow. 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 Wow.
And
So
for me,
interesting.
I keep getting this visual in my head. Like, if you want to go to Home Depot, do you ask the kid that's never been to Home Depot where to find the plumbing parts? Right?
Right. 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 Talk to somebody who's been there and knows the stuff. Yeah.
Right. That's for me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if I want to know more about heaven, I'm gonna hang with the guy that's been to heaven.
Been
So
there. Yeah. Been there, done that. We'll do it again someday.
Well, it's really neat though when you meet a bunch of us. We're all telling the same stuff. Most of us are believing the same way about Source, about God, about God being this unconditional love, this unconditional source of love to help us flow into a new state of being. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went through divorce, and my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, who I'm still close to, she my son lives with her up in Indiana, and she was a prayer leader, just amazing woman who just in our church, and just incredible stories that I grew a lot through her. And in some of the painful stuff that she's processed, she has gone in on a journey of more seeing God in terms of divine love. And I don't think it's wrong. But I asked her a question. So it's interesting. We could talk about divine love, and I guess I would ask, can you have divine love without a person, a personal interaction? I asked her, so who is divine love? I just felt led to ask her, who is divine love? And her first words were energy. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because the night before, and again, being in flow, the night before I was literally listening to videos in my preparations for my physics teaching, and they were talking on energy. And they said energy is a scalar, and energy can take all different
Meaning
forms.
what?
Yeah.
Scalars.
So yeah, yeah. So in physics, all quantities are either vectors or scalars. So a vector is something. Anybody who's seen Despicable Me, the villain, his name is Vector, and he says, "I have magnitude and direction." That's actually what a vector is. It's something with magnitude and direction. So velocity is a vector. Speed is a scalar. So speed, I can say I'm going 50 miles per hour. That's a scalar. If I say I'm going 50 miles per hour north, that's a vector because I've given both the speed and the direction, right? Force is a vector. It's something. It's a how much that you put force. How do you say? What is a force? How do I define force? It's pushing something, energy that pushes something in a direction, but it's a vector. And there's a lot of things that are scalars and vectors, and it's a important distinction we make in physics. And they said in this podcast, I'm sorry, in this video teaching, energy is a scalar, which means energy doesn't have any direction. And I think that's really important. Energy does not have direction. Okay? And energy can take any form that you want it to, almost. Energy isn't created or destroyed, it can take any form. Meaning, sound is energy, light is energy. There's a lot of things that we're talking about, frequency and flow and all these things, beautiful, powerful terminology. But if we reduce them to only energy, then there's no direction and they can take any form. And so I have witnessed this in her life as she has moved away from God as a personal source of love, more to an energy. I have seen direction, lack of direction. In fact, my son, I shouldn't probably share all this on a live podcast, but it's been a hard season. I'll just say that it's been a really hard season. And if energy can take any form that you want it, then you can be in control. Now, I know that might ruffle feathers. Like, no, I'm submitting to something. Yes. So, and we could go off on a lot of different conversations on
So,
this, but I think
let
it's
me
important. Yeah.
let me jump into that first. So the way that I process that, the way that's hitting my brain is because we talk about love energy.
Yeah.
So when you've got these scalars, it needs something to turn it into something useful, to turn it into a vector, to create motion, and we then are the ones that take that static love, anything else, and apply it into our own lives, into other people's lives, and we're the ones that can decide. We can pull that down and then turn it into something useful for other people, and whatever the energy, and there's all kinds of energy out there, um, but we can choose what to plug into. Whether it's you talk about forgiveness, we can choose to plug into that, the forgiveness energy. We could also choose to plug into something that's more of a negative energy.
We can. Yes.
But you have the power as an individual, and you also have the power to turn that into the vector. You can direct that love to somebody else. You can direct it to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly. No, I totally agree. So, and what part of what I've been thinking about is that people are vectors. I think people, we are vectors. We have direction. We have energy. We can draw energy from things to take us in directions. Very much so. And so, yes, and I don't think it's all problematic to view God or the universe as energy. I don't think it's actually a problem unless you never get to the source. Energy is not the source. Person is the source. God, I believe, is personal. And so God sends energy our way in various ways. And we were talking before about how do you surrender? Well, you only surrender where you trust. And so if I know and believe that this being that's behind everything, I shouldn't say it that way. This being who created everything, who gave us all free will and is constantly offering love for us to get into that flow, is fully trustworthy, then if I'm not letting go of control, it's because some part of me is believing a lie that that being is not trustworthy. And that actually is the core of all growth. So you talked about, Alyssa, being in traffic and stressed and whatever. Okay, so now we have to go back down. Where do I not trust? Where am I holding on to control and believing a lie about myself or the being who knows me inside and out? And if I'm believing a lie about myself or that being, it's probably that is where flow will be limited. Flow will be limited where I'm believing a lie because I'm now out of alignment with the truth. This being is the truth. All reality. Anyways, good.
I was
Please
saying
go.
one other thing with that analogy, and I love it. You're just taking the surface streets, stuck in traffic. I would say a couple key things are be clear on where you want to go, because you may just be driving around the neighborhood and comfortable with that. And with part of that surrender, if you're looking at, okay, I want to be in a place far different from where I'm at, be clear on where that destination is. You got to know where you want to go. It's like in Alice in Wonderland when Alice is talking to the Cheshire Cat and says, "Well, which path should I take?" He said, "Well, it depends on where you want to go."
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really matter. And he said, "Well, it doesn't matter what path you take." So be clear on the destination you want to go to, and then ask for directions from somebody who knows how to get there. Put it in your spiritual
Okay, you're
GPS.
saying that. You're
Yeah.
saying that, but then also so it's like I need to know where I wanna go, but I also need to surrender.
So here's the other thought that came to mind is many times, because freeways can be, if you've never driven on a freeway before, they can be scary.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, things are moving fast, but there's actually less accidents as long as everybody is, like, paying attention, but
Yeah.
there's a whole lot less going on the freeway, even though it's going faster. Getting back to the flow through a pipe, pressure's decreased as long as the analogy isn't perfect. I understand there's
No. Yeah,
things
that's the
on
thing about
freeway,
analogies. Yeah.
but the surrender is like, okay, this is gonna get me there faster, and once I have more practice and experience with that, I'm gonna be more comfortable on it. But the only way to do it is to give it a try. Getting back to what we were talking earlier with Vinny and, the emotion code stuff, and this ties into, like, a scientific approach to things.
Yeah.
Um, Initially, when Vinny was doing this work and I got introduced to it, I was super skeptical. I was like, "Wait," 'cause and the example that I use, 'cause it's a very personal one, my wrist. I had a pain in my wrist for, like, a year. I couldn't do push-ups anymore because it hurts so much to do those, and it wasn't carpal tunnel. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and Vinny was like, "Well, let's just try this." I was like, "Okay, it's not gonna hurt anything. Let's try it." But I was
So good.
skeptical, but I
Yeah.
trusted.
You trusted him.
And
Yeah.
so
Well,
we went through that process of kind of releasing some emotions, and I was doing push-ups the next morning. It was, and it was still a little tender because I hadn't used it that way in a year, but I recognized that the pain itself was gone,
wow.
and it hasn't come back, and so that, to
Yeah.
me, was me personally doing that scientific method, giving it a try, learning through observation, and it was like, well, all I can tell you is that it worked for me, and then I've seen it work with many other people, and so these connections that, from a limited perspective of science, people are like, "No, no, there's no way." I'm like, "Well, actually, there is. You're just limiting your view," and if you think about in history, how many
Mhm.
scientific breakthroughs were a result of somebody relinquishing an old paradigm?
It's true. It's true. I want to write a book about that, but I probably won't be the one because it needs to be more of a historian. But yeah, I think every discovery, even just oh gosh, I could go through a bunch of them. But
Mhm.
I want to. I don't want to. I'm sorry. You had something.
Oh, I was gonna Vinny's chewing on something here. What
Well, it's like if you go back and study the earliest forms of science, they started as spiritualists, as shamans, as mystics. Those were our first scientists. And I think science, being afraid to see the past, that was in the past, they've really dissented or tried to dissent from there. But the future is to come back to where it all started and realize that there is a mystical side to science that even the greatest mysticism can be explained even through science. It's just more understanding that brings the explanation, not rejection, especially blind rejection, because I do get a little bit of that from some people, that they want to do a blind rejection because it doesn't, what I do and what I represent does not fit their paradigm. And in my flow state, I accept that. I say, okay, they're not ready for something like this. I love it, yeah.
So another thought that just came to me as we're talking about science and spiritual things, that many times it's kind of a weird dichotomy, because in science you're exploring and you're trying to push boundaries and all the rest, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we talk about surrender. In science, there's a need for control, and when you're creating an experiment, you want to control the conditions as much as possible, which is understandable, because that makes it, you can replicate it and other people can improve it for themselves. But anytime, and I wonder how much of this false dichotomy between science and spirituality is because there's so many things that you can't control in spiritual stuff. It's just beyond our control, and you've got to surrender in order to experience it. And there's a different way of thinking, but it's not impossible. I mean, you're proving that, I'm proving that it's not, there's no real dichotomy there if you're open to that wonder and that experimentation in different ways, and you're willing to accept that there are some circumstances where you can't have absolute control, and when you surrender, that's when you experience the magic. So, Vinny, tell me some of your experiences with, first of all, how your experience shifted your paradigm, and then the difference that you've seen in working with people that are open to a variety of new ideas compared to people that are closed.
Well, the big thing that I've witnessed is, we're all changing, all of us. And I had a particular individual that hated my story, rejected it, said that I was the spawn of Satan even, and that I was here to try to wreck his beliefs. And I was like, no, I'm not here to do any of that. I'm just me. And truly hated me and was very vocal about it. His wife happened to love me, though, so that's why I kept hearing about it. So, well, fast forward later, she passes away, and the only thing he has of hers, after their kids kind of come through their house and take everything of hers, because he let him. He was not in a state that he wanted to, but he has this one book. The one book left is The Light After Death. And every time he looked at it, he just felt vinegar in his soul.
Yeah. Wow.
And finally one day he was so tired and he was trying to fall asleep, and he said, well, if anything will put me asleep, it's that dumb story, So he grabs that book and starts reading it, and he actually felt his wife come alive in his mind while he read it. And now what was this I don't know, milestone of hatred towards something now became a token of love. And me experiencing this from my perspective is, I have this husband that comes to an event here and there and just like scowls at me and very openly talks to me how much he hates me, and I'm like, okay. And then later to be hugged by him with tears, it's like we all change. We all have different places where we're ready to receive stuff and other places we're not. The beauty of this is it's that unconditional love that we can have for each other. That, I felt so empowered when he first confronted me by not reacting, by just giving him love. It was eerie, because as a child, I got in a lot of fights, a lot.
Wow.
And then as a young adult, I got in a lot of fights, physical fights, fist fights, and to have an altercation turn to love, it was really
That's
amazing
so cool.
for me.
It's how the world changes. It's
how the world changes.
It's how lives transform.
Yeah, giving each other some patience.
Yep.
And some love, and watching as life works on us, we start realizing that there's some great opportunities for expansion through that tremendous force, love.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
So,
Yeah.
Alyssa, how is all this hitting your brain and how you're processing everything we've been talking about?
So from my perspective, like straight up honesty, and when science turns on, I end up going like, I don't know about that, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend I do. You know?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
but what I hear is like you have been saying multiple things that are just confirmations of my experience, the surrender process, the letting go of expectation. I still have a lot of expectations that, they end up putting me back into the streets, right? Like back into the city streets, back to that traffic analogy. Like when my expectations flare up, I don't do it on purpose. I just want a good outcome to come out. And then I end up exiting the freeway. But I love this conversation because it is expanding my awareness. And I do recognize that I have more to learn for sure.
Okay, so Ryan, if you had one message that you could share with the world, just a simple, pure message, what would you tell the world if this is your chance to say, "This is what I want you to know"?
Wow. You are more loved than you know, and the very being who put you on this planet knows you better than you know yourself. And when you discover that, your life will pop in ways that will blow your mind.
Beautiful.
I
Yeah,
love
that is so
that.
beautiful. Okay, for our very last question for you, Ryan, we are so
Yes.
grateful that you've been with us today.
Yeah.
Our last question we like to leave with our guests is, how is Ryan living God's light?
Oh, how is Ryan living God's light? Um, well, the ancient understanding of light was that it always came from fire, and so I think staying passionate, staying in love. Like we use fire a lot as an analogy for love. 2/3 of pop songs are actually about love and relationships. I think that's actually powerful. If I stay in love with the one who created me and in relationship with, listening, I think I'll stay on fire. Like I think the things fire is contagious. So like you catch on fire when you get around people on fire. It doesn't even matter what they're talking about. They could be talking about like how to organize cans in your cupboard and they're so excited about it. You could get excited about it because they're on fire for it. So I think God wants us to stay on fire by staying in connection, personal connection with Him, with her, with Holy Spirit, listening in flow, and the fire will just be stoked. And getting around people who are on fire. You guys have a passion and a love for people, and it shows in your podcasts and what you share and the healing that you bring to people. And when you get around people that are on fire, it stokes your fire.
Thank you for expanding your light today. If you want to find more information, get connected to our community, or simply contribute, see our website at livinggodslight.org. As always, please subscribe.